Then the children of Israel did...
We've been seeing this cycle, right? The children of Israel fall into evil. They get oppressed. A deliverer rises, delivers them. Then they do something bad again, and then they get oppressed, and another deliverer rises. And that's what the roles of the judges have been so far. They've been delivering the children of Israel in some fashion. So let's continue here.
Evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord delivered them into the hand of Midian for 7 years, and the hand of Midian prevailed against Israel. Because of the Midianites, the children of Israel made for themselves the dens, the caves, and the strongholds which are in the mountains. So it was, whenever Israel had sown, Midianites would come up. Also Amalekites and the people of the east would come up against them. Then they would encamp against them and destroy the produce of the earth as far as Gaza, and leave no sustenance for Israel, neither sheep nor ox.
Dang, everybody's
nor
coming
donkey.
against them.
For they would come up with their livestock and their tents, coming in as numerous as locusts. Both they and their camels were without number. And they would enter the land to destroy it. So Israel was greatly impoverished because of the Midianites, and the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. And it came to pass, when the children of Israel cried out to the Lord because of the Midianites, that the Lord sent a prophet to the children of Israel.
Now here we go again.
Thus says the Lord God of Israel, I brought you up from Egypt, and brought you out of the house of bondage. And I delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of all who oppressed you, and drove them out before you, and gave you their land. Also I said to you, I am the Lord your God. Do not fear the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you dwell.
Who is this prophet?
But you have not obeyed my voice.
Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth tree, which was in Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, while his son Gideon threshed wheat in the winepress, in order to
That was just
hide
an
it from the
unnamed
Midianites.
prophet. That's
And
interesting.
the angel of the Lord appeared to him.
Because, I mean, the last prophet we just talked about was the prophetess Deborah, right? And I don't think they considered Ehud and Shamgar prophets. I don't remember. But we haven't had a prophet for a while. Like, and we had Othniel, right? But I think those were more like military deliverances, right? We haven't had a prophet in a while. Like Moses was the last significant prophet. Then we just have this no-named prophet. They didn't really mention his name at all. That's interesting. I wonder how long... Was he a prophet for the majority, for like a good, decent chunk of his life? Like how long did he serve the children of Israel as a prophet?
In the winepress,
Let me go
in
back a little bit
Ophrah,
more.
which belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, while his son Gideon threshed wheat in the winepress, in order to hide it from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him.
Threshed wheat in the wine press in order to hide it from the threshed wheat. Okay.
The Lord is with you.
So the Midianites never checked their wine press, I guess, because they're threshing their wheat in there and they're doing it in order to hide from the Midianites.
You mighty man of valor.
What is threshing wheat, to be honest? Threshing wheat. Threshing is a process of loosening the edible part of the grain. Okay, from the straw. Okay. So, get it to that, right? Get the grain. Okay, and so they used to do that in the wine press. I guess instead of out in the open. Why? Were they limiting the food of the people? Dang, that's tough.
And the angel of the Lord appeared to him.
The Lord is with you, you mighty man of valor.
Oh, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? And where are all his miracles which our fathers told us about, saying, did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and delivered us into the hands of the Midianites.
Go in this might of yours, and you shall save Israel from the hands of the Midianites. Have I not sent you?
Oh, my Lord, how can I save Israel? Indeed.
So this is the same problem the children of Israel were having, right? That Gideon is personally having. Like he doesn't have that faith, right? This is something that we've seen that Caleb and Joshua had, right? They went in and spied out the land, the promised land, and they came back ready. All right, we're ready to go. Let's go. Let's take over. Even though they saw that the walls were fortified and there were giants in the land, right? Their faith wasn't shaken. But the rest of the 10, I think they sent 12, right? And the rest of the 10, they were scared. And they gave a bad report of the land, saying that they were giants and we were like grasshoppers in their eyes. And they were scared, right? But here, Gideon is scared as well. And God needs to remind him that, have I not sent you? You don't have to be scared. Have faith. Go in. Do what I told you. And it's going to work out.
My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house.
Surely.
Okay, this is interesting also, right? We had the tribes, remember? And Manasseh had broken into two, right? We had half of Manasseh on one side of the Jordan, the other half on the other side of the Jordan. But now we see that there are individual clans within the tribes, which makes sense because these tribes have tens of thousands of people in them.
And is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house.
Yeah, this guy has an insecurity
Surely
problem.
I will be with you, and you shall...
Second guesses himself. He's insecure, which makes sense why he needed to test God with the fleece, because he wasn't sure. That's interesting.
defeat the Midianites as one man.
If now I have found favor in your sight, then show me a sign that it is you who talk with me. Do not depart from here, I pray,
see?
until I come to you and bring out my offering and set it before me.
I will wait until you come back.
That's interesting, right? Because nowadays when somebody talks like this, we'd say, you can't just ask for signs like that. That's what faith is. You have to build your faith, be strong in your faith. But here Gideon is like, if now I have found favor in your sight, then show me a sign that it is you who talk with me. Like he wants to verify, hey, is this God? Are you really talking to me, or am I imagining things? Right? He's looking for a sign. I feel like a lot of us have done that. And here we're getting an example of it actually happening. So I just find that interesting. Like nowadays we try not to do this, right? We try not to ask for signs because it seems like it's a weakness of our own faith. Or it could just be like you're seeking verification, right? You could have your 100% faith in God, but you're not sure that this is God or not talking to you, right? So he wants to verify. That could be it as well. But with the fact that he is unsure of himself, right? Yeah, again, he could be having faith in God, but he's just unsure of himself. And that's manifesting in this way as well. Could be.
Until you come back.
So
But God is being understanding. He's like, I'll wait till you come back and, we'll figure it out.
went in and prepared a young goat and unleavened bread from the ephah of flour. The meat he put in a basket, and he put the broth in a pot. And he brought them out to him under the terebinth tree and presented them. The angel of God said to him,
Take the meat and the unleavened bread and lay them on this rock, and pour out the broth.
and he did so.
Okay, wait. So an angel, this was an angel that had come to Gideon, right? Then the Lord turned to him and said, okay. And the Lord said to him, capital H for God. So where did this angel come from? So Gideon went in and prepared a young goat and unleavened bread from the ephah of flour. the meat he put in a basket, and he put the broth in a pot, and he brought them out to him, capital H, under the terebinth tree, and presented them. The angel of the God said to him, take the meat. Okay, so this is an angel, and they're using a capital H. I didn't know that. I didn't know they did that. And it says, and the Lord said to him, surely I will be with you, and you shall defeat the Midianites as one man. Then he said to him, God. So where does angel come from? Are they just using, but it's saying, and the Lord said to him, through the angel? Or is this God actually speaking? That's interesting. Because when we had the angels appeared to Abraham and Sarah, right? I think they were mentioned as angels and another figure, correct? I don't remember actually. And same thing with Lot. Those were two angels. Yeah, I'm pretty sure those were two angels. But with Sarah, I think one was the Lord, right? But here we're getting the Lord and angel referring the same person. Seems like. Unless they are two different people and this angel came out of nowhere. Or this angel is here the whole time, and by the Lord, it's saying that the angel, God is talking through the angel. Let me see if this Bible has anything to say about this. I doubt it will. Gideon's call is the centerpiece of chapter 6. It begins with the appearance of the angel of the Lord to Gideon, followed by an account of Gideon's destruction of an altar of Baal, after which we see Gideon's unwavering faith. Okay, so that gives us some more insight, right? That Gideon had faith. So the idea of him wanting verification is probably that, just verification. He's unsure of himself and who he's hearing. Not that he is unsure that, if God is talking to him, it would be, the truth.
It's one man.
But this is interesting. Is it an angel or is it God, or is there two right there talking to him? Was this actually God talking to him? I guess we don't really know the way this is phrased.
If now I have found favor in your sight,
Capital Y.
then show me a sign that it is you who talk with me. Do not depart from here, I pray, until I come to you and bring out my offering.
Okay. Boom. Right? So he doesn't know who is talking to him. So this may be God talking to him in a vision, or he's just, feeling God, like his will, and he's not sure if that's his own imagination or if it's God, right? And then an angel probably physically appeared to him. Could be.
You shall defeat the Midianites as one man.
If now I have found favor in your sight, then show me a sign that it is you who talk with me. Do not depart from here, I pray, until I come to you and bring out my offering and set it before me.
I will wait until you come back.
So Gideon went in and prepared a young goat and unleavened bread from the ephah of flour. The meat he put in a basket, and he put the broth in a pot. And he brought them out to him under the terebinth tree and presented
Capital H.
them.
So that means that he was under the terebinth tree.
The angel of God said to him,
Take the meat and the unleavened bread and lay them on.
And this him is referring to this him. And this is saying, then he said to him, which means that this is this him. This Lord is him. So that means Lord and angel are the same. They're using capital H for an angel. I didn't know that was done. Okay, so this is interesting. Let me know if you guys have any insight on this, because that is interesting.
The angel of God said to him,
Take the meat and the unleavened bread and lay them on this rock and pour out the broth.
and he did so. Then the angel of the Lord put out the end of the staff that was in his hand and touched the meat and the unleavened bread. And fire rose out of the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened bread. And the angel of the Lord departed out of his sight. Now Gideon
So, right, he said, show me a sign that it is you who I'm talking with. Yeah, that's a sign right there.
perceived that he was the angel of the Lord.
Alas,
An angel of the Lord. So, maybe God, he is talking to God here, and God is saying this, and he asked for a sign. Then there's some context missing over here, and there's an angel under the tree, and he goes to meet the angel, and the angel gives him a sign, right? Maybe this was, and he said, I will wait until you come back. Do not depart, and bring out my offering and set it before you. Before you. And he came back, brought them out to under the terebinth tree and presented it to them. So, no. So God was there, right? Because he's coming to set it before him, before the Lord. And he went out directly to the terebinth tree where the angel was sitting. So, yeah, that's confusing. Let me know what you guys think.
O Lord God, for I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face.
Peace be with you. Do not fear. You shall not die.
So Gideon built an altar there to the Lord and called it, The Lord is Peace. To this day it is still in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. Now it came to pass the same night that the Lord said to him...
We don't know who wrote
Take
Judges,
your
right? So I'm wondering when this, to this day, what is this day?
Father's young bull.
Clearly it is, this guy has read Moses' books, right? And Joshua, because to this day it is still in the Ophrah of the Abiezrites, right? Because that type, to this day it is still, that phrase has been used previously.
The second bull of 7 years old. And tear down the altar of Baal that your father has, and cut down the wooden image that is beside it, and build an altar.
So this guy's coming from, so Gideon is coming from a family of paganism. So the children of Israel have really fallen, and we're seeing it firsthand right now.
Young bull, the second bull of 7 years old, and tear down the altar of Baal that your father has, and cut down the wooden image that is beside it, and build an altar to the Lord your God on top of this rock in the proper arrangement.
That makes sense why he didn't know if God was talking to him or not, because he is being raised in a pagan household. That makes sense.
And take the second bull and offer a burnt sacrifice with the wood of the image, which you shall cut down.
And I'm sure Gideon has prayed to that idol multiple times himself.
So Gideon took 10 men from among his servants, and did as the Lord had said to him. But because he feared his father's household and the men of the city too much to do it by day, he did it by night. And when the men of the city arose early in the morning, there was the altar of Baal, torn down, and the wooden image that was beside it was cut down, and the second bull was being offered on the altar which had been built. So they said to one another,
Who has done this thing?
and when they had inquired and asked, they said,
Gideon, the son of Joash, has done this thing.
Then the men of the city said to Joash,
That's
Bring
crazy.
out your son that he may die.
The children of
because
Israel
he has
are
torn
mad at a guy, at one of them, for destroying an altar of Baal. Wow.
down the altar of Baal, and because he has cut down the wooden image that was beside it.
So
But
the wooden
Joash
image of Baal
said to
and then an
all who
altar
stood
to
against
Baal.
him,
Would you plead for Baal? Would you save him? Let the one who would plead for him be put to death by morning. If he is a god, let him plead for himself,
There we go.
because
Boom.
his altar has been torn down.
There we go. Similar
Therefore-
to the idea of that story in the Quran with Abraham and his dad, right? We talked about that in a previous video. Or you could check out my Abraham in the Bible in the Quran video. We talk about that story there as well.
For on that day he called him Jerubbaal, saying, Let Baal plead against him, because he has torn down his altar. Then all the Midianites and Amalekites, the people of the east, gathered together, and they crossed over and encamped in the valley of Jezreel. But the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon. Then he blew the trumpet, and the Abiezrites gathered behind him. And he sent messengers throughout all Manasseh, who also gathered behind him. He also sent messengers to Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, and they came up to meet them. So Gideon said to God,
If you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said, look, I shall put a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew on the fleece only, and it is dry on all the ground, then I shall know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said.
And now we know why this test is happening. Because he was raised a pagan. He didn't grow up with a faith in God. His dad had they had an altar to Baal in their house.
And it was so.
Or an idol. Probably, yeah.
That
was probably not an altar to Baal in their house, but you know.
Early the next morning and squeezed the fleece.
Did it say that, right? When the man rose, he said he was fear his father's house, right? So I'm guessing it was in his house. Take your father's young bull and the second bull of the sevens and tear down the altar of Baal. Yeah, that your father has, and cut down the... Okay, yeah, so it is the father's.
Said to all who stood against him,
The son of Joash has done this thing.
Son, that he may die. Hide it.
on his altar. Then all the Midianites and Amalekites, the people of the east, gathered together, and they crossed over and encamped in the valley of Jezreel. But the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon. Then he blew the trumpet,
Let's go to so
and he sent messengers throughout all Manasseh, who also gathered behind him. He also sent messengers to Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, and they came up to meet them. So Gideon said to God,
If you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said, look, I shall put a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew on the fleece only, and it is dry on all the ground, then I shall know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said.
and it was so. When he rose early the next morning and squeezed the fleece together, he wrung the dew out of the fleece, a bowl full of water. Then Gideon said to God,
Do not be angry with me, but let me speak just once more. Let me test, I pray, just once more with the fleece. Let it now be dry only on the fleece, but on all the ground let there be dew.
Man, I feel like God would be annoyed at this
God
point.
did so that night.
But I guess he's being
It was
patient
dry
with
on
him,
the fleece only, but there
knowing
was
that
dew
this
on
guy
all
grew
the
up
ground.
in this type of environment. All right, chapter 7.
Then Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the people who were with him rose early and encamped beside the well of Harod, so that the camp of the Midianites was on the north side of them by the hill of Moreh in the valley. And the Lord said to Gideon,
The people who are with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel claim glory for itself against me, saying, My own hand has saved me. Now,
So he didn't want it to be an obvious victory, like, wow. Obviously, we easily defeated them because it's us. I mean, we have more men than them, or we have the same amount of men than them, and, we could do it. God wanted to make it more obvious that it is not the children of Israel, right? So it's going to be, I guess we'll find out what happened. I don't want to spoil what's about to happen.
proclaim in the hearing of the people, saying, Whoever is fearful and afraid, let him turn and depart at once from Mount Gilead.
And 22,000 of the people returned, and 10,000 remained. But the Lord said to Gideon,
The people are still too many. Bring them down to the water, and I will test them for
God's
you.
literally just trying to make a point.
Then it will be
You
that
didn't
of
do
whom
this,
I say to
I
you,
did this.
This one shall go with you. The same shall go with you. And of whomever I say to you, this one shall not go with you, the same shall not go.
So he brought the people down to the water. And the Lord said to Gideon,
Everyone who laps from the water with his tongue, as a dog laps, you shall set apart by himself. Likewise, everyone who gets down on his knees to drink.
And the number of those who lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, was 300 men. But all the rest of the people got down on their knees to drink water. Then the Lord said to Gideon,
By the 300 men who lapped, I will save you, and deliver the Midianites into your hand. Let all the other people go, every man to his place.
So the people took provisions and their trumpets in their hands. And he sent away all the rest of Israel, every man to his tent, and retained those 300 men. Now the camp of Midian was below him in the valley. It happened on the same night that the Lord said to him,
Arise, go down against the camp, for I have delivered it into your hand. But if you are afraid to go down to the camp with Purah, your servant, and you shall hear what they say. And afterward, your hands...
So Gideon is some type of insecure. He has some type of insecurity. He's scared. He's a scared person. On top of that, he didn't grow up with God in his heart. He grew up a pagan.
...shall be strengthened to go down against the camp.
Then he went down with Purah, his servant, to the outpost of the armed men who were in the camp. Now the Midianites and Amalekites, all the people of the east, were lying in the valley as numerous as locusts, and their camels were without number, as the sand by the seashore in multitude. And when Gideon had come, there was a man telling a dream to his companion.
I have had a dream. To my surprise, a loaf of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian. It came to a tent and struck it so that it fell and overturned, and the tent collapsed.
This is nothing else but the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. Into his hand God has delivered me.
Wait, let me go back a little bit. Then he went down with the Purah, his servant, to the outpost of the armed men who were in the camp. Now the Midianites and the Amalekites, all the people of the east, were lying in the valley as numerous as locusts. And they're right. So we have a whole bunch of people as lying in the valley as numerous as locusts. So thousands upon thousands of people. Verses 300. Then, and their camels were without a number, as the sand by the seashore in multitude. Wow. So we got a multitude of people here. And when Gideon had come, there was a man telling a dream to his companion. He said, I have had a dream. Who is this guy also? Is this the prophet? No. This is one of the Amalekites or Midianites. And I've had a dream. To my surprise, a loaf of barley bread tumbled into...
A loaf of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian. It
so
came
it's like
to
prophesying what's about to happen.
And struck it so that it fell and overturned, and the tent collapsed.
This is nothing else but the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. Into his hand God has delivered Midian and the whole camp.
And so it was, when Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation, that he worshipped.
Who are these guys?
He returned to the camp of Israel and said,
How did they know of Gideon and his father and that God would deliver Midian and the whole camp? That's interesting, right? That is interesting. Who is this? Who is the companion?
Rise, for the Lord has delivered the camp of Midian into your hand.
Then he divided the 300 men into 3 companies.
So hearing it from them gave him confidence.
And he put a trumpet into every man's hand with empty pitchers and torches inside the pitchers.
Okay, see, this is how you see this mindset here. Arise, for the Lord has delivered the camp of Midian into your hand. Gideon needed to hear that prophecy coming out of their mouths to know, like, okay, it is a done deal, right? But back when Joshua and the children of Israel were conquesting around the promised land, right, taken over, they were going into each war, each battle, with the idea that they had already won. They were saying, God has delivered the promised land to us, right? It is ours. We just have to go and take it. We already won. They are already believing that they already won the battle before the battle even took place. So imagine, like, you were going in with the utmost confidence at that point, right? But God knew that Gideon needed to hear it. He didn't have that faith yet. Or maybe he didn't even know how to believe that yet. So he gave that to Gideon. That's interesting.
A man's hand with empty pitchers and torches inside the pitchers.
So you could also take it as, if you ask for a sign or something like that, right? Something like this, and God doesn't give it to you, maybe you already have that within yourself. Maybe you already have the ability to believe that you won without even starting to begin with. Maybe God just has that faith in you.
Every man's hand with empty pitchers and torches inside the pitchers.
Look at me and do likewise. Watch, and when I come to the edge of the camp, you shall do as I do. When I blow the trumpet, I and all who are with me, then you also blow the trumpets on every side of the whole camp and say, the sword of the Lord and of Gideon.
Okay, so I had always thought that God told him to do this, right? Because it's similar to the tumbling of Jericho, right? The walls of Jericho, right? They're just screaming, making a sound like it is a whole bunch more people, right, than there actually are. And it's going to freak out the enemy, right? The Midianites. I always thought that God had told him to do that, right? We knew that God had dwindled the numbers down to 300, but I thought God had told him specifically to do this with the pitchers and the torches and scream and all that stuff, right? But this is actually Gideon's idea. Gideon told them to do that, and that is smart, right? Because he now knows that the Midianites believe that they are going to lose, or at least that idea has been planted in their mind, right? Based on this dream. And they probably have heard stories of the real God, right? Because now the children of Israel had fallen into idolatry. And they're seeing, look, we were able to conquer them. But back in the day, these people were going around conquering everybody. And they had this one God. Now, that God is with Gideon. And we were just told that we were going to lose this battle. And when they hear all these noises, the noises of the pitchers and the trumpets, they're thinking some grand army is coming. And with that pre-existing knowledge that they've had from the dream, they're going to freak out even more. So that's
Lord
smart
of the
on Gideon.
Lord and of Gideon.
So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the outpost of the camp
300,
at
right?
the beginning of the middle watch, just as they had posted the watch. And they blew the trumpets and broke the pitchers that were in their hands. Then the 3 companies blew the trumpets and broke the pitchers. They held the
Oh, they
torches
split
in their
up.
left
My bad.
hands and the trumpets in their right hands for blowing. And they cried,
The sword of the Lord and of Gideon!
and every man stood in his place all around the camp. And the whole
See,
army
he knew he had to name drop his own name, right? Because that just validates that that dream that one of the Midianites had. So that'll freak them out. Holy cow! How did okay, this can't be a coincidence. We're actually going to lose right now.
Gideon!
And every man stood in his place all around the camp. And the whole army ran and cried out and fled. When the 300 blew the trumpets, the Lord set every man's
That's
sword.
crazy. So Gideon and his 300 men went in knowing, they believed that they were going to win before the battle even happened. And the Midianites believed they were going to lose before the battle even happened. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Against his companion throughout the whole camp. And the army fled to Beth-Acacia, toward Zerah, as far as the borders of Abel-Meholah, by Tabbath. And the men of Israel gathered together from Naphtali, Asher,
I wonder if this is named after Abel.
and all Manasseh, and pursued the Midianites. Then Gideon sent messengers throughout all the mountains of Ephraim.
Come down against the Midianites, and seize from them the watering places as far as Bethbara and the Jordan.
Gideon
Then
is
all the
building
men of
that
Ephraim
confidence right
gathered
now.
together and seized the watering places as far as Bethbara and the Jordan. And they captured 2 princes of the Midianites, Oreb and Zeeb. They killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb, and Zeeb they killed at the winepress of Zeeb. They pursued Midian and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeeb.
So they
to
kill these guys and then name places after them, or did they kill them at places that where their names were? Or did they kill them where at places that were named after them? Either way, that's disrespect.
Midian, on the other side of the Jordan.
All right, chapter 8.
Now the men of Ephraim said to him,
Why have you done this to us by not calling us when you went to fight with the Midianites?
and they reprimanded him sharply. So he said to them,
What have I done now in comparison with you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer? God has delivered into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb, and Zeeb. And what was I able to do in comparison with you?
Then their anger toward him subsided when he said that.
Yeah,
When
because why
Gideon
would they get
came
mad
to
at
the
that?
Jordan, he and the 300 men
I
who
mean,
were
they've
with him
done
crossed
successfully.
over, exhausted, but still in pursuit. Then he said to the men of Succoth,
Please give loaves of bread to the people who follow me, for they are exhausted. And I am pursuing Zebah and Zalmunna, kings of Midian.
and the leaders of Succoth said,
Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in your hand, that we should give bread to your army?
For this cause, when the
I guess the men of Ephraim are scared of like a power shift going on, and they wanted to know beforehand, right? Because this is going to change some dynamics around, you know.
For this cause, when
God wanted to wipe out everybody, right? Not live with the Midianites, and so they've been living with the Midianites. So yeah, this is gonna change a whole lot right now.
the Lord has delivered Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, then I will tear your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and with briars.
Then he went up from there to Penuel, and spoke to them in the same way. And the men of Penuel answered him as the men of Succoth had answered. So he also spoke to the men of Penuel.
When I come back in peace, I will tear down this tower.
Now
All right, Gideon has
Zebah
that fate now.
and Zalmunna were at
he has a mission.
Karkor, and their armies with them, about 15,000, all who were left of all the army of the people of the east. For 120,000 men who drew the sword had fallen. Then Gideon went up by the road of those who dwell in tents on the east of Nobah and Jogbehah. and he attacked the army while the camp felt secure. When Zebah and Zalmunna fled, he pursued them, and he took the 2 kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, and routed the whole army. Then Gideon, the son of Joash, returned from battle, from the ascent of Heres.
What do you mean routed the whole army? When Zebah and Zalmunna fled, he pursued them, and he took the 2 kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, and routed the whole army. Like created a route to go and pursue them, maybe?
A young man of the men of Succoth, and interrogated him. And he wrote down for him the leaders of Succoth and its elders, 77 men. Then he came to the men of Succoth and said,
Here are Zebah and Zalmunna, about whom you ridiculed me, saying, Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in your hand, that we should give bread to your weary men?
And he took the elders of the city, and thorns of the wilderness and briars, and with them he taught the men of Succoth.
Ooh.
Then he tore down the tower of Penuel.
Right, because what did he say regarding briars? Let me just go back in my text. Judges 8:8. I will tear your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and with briars. So did he actually tear the flesh of the elders? Dang, that's kind of gruesome right there.
And briars, and with them he taught the men of Succoth.
Yeah, I think he did.
Then he tore down
he definitely
the tower
taught them,
of Penuel, and killed the men of the city.
Yeah, he definitely did. Yeah.
And he said to Zebah and Zalmunna,
What kind of men were they whom you killed at Tabor?
As you are, so were they. Each one resembled the son of a king.
They were my brothers, the sons of my mother.
Oh, really? Oh.
As the Lord lives, if you had let them live, I would not kill you.
And he said to Jether, his firstborn,
Rise, kill them.
But the youth would not draw his sword, for he was afraid, because he was still a youth. So Zebah and Zalmunna said,
Gideon is becoming...
Rise yourself and kill us. For as a man is, so is his strength.
So Gideon arose and killed Zebah and Zalmunna, and took the crescent ornaments that were on their camels' necks.
Gideon is becoming ruthless.
Then
Holy.
the men of Israel said to Gideon,
Rule over us, both you and your son, and your grandson also, for you have delivered us from the hand of Midian.
I will not rule over you, nor shall my son rule over you. The Lord shall rule over you. I would like to make a request of you, that each of you would give me the earrings from his plunder.
For they had golden earrings, because they were Ishmaelites. So they answered,
Ishmaelites had golden earrings. That's interesting. I'm curious if the Ishmaelites had golden earrings. So they were considered the men of Israel. When did that happen? Because they are not the men of Israel. The men of Israel are descendants of Jacob. And Ishmael is not a descendant of Jacob. What is going on here? Then the men of Israel said to Gideon, Rule over us, blah, blah, blah. But Gideon said to them, blah, blah, blah. Then Gideon said to them, I would like to make a request of you, that each of you would give me the earrings from his plunder, for they had golden earrings because they were Ishmaelites. So how are Ishmaelites Israelites? That does not make any sense. But also, on a side note, I'm wondering if Islam is a thing now, right? If that's what the Ishmaelites are following.
Rings from his plunder.
For they had golden earrings, because they were Ishmaelites.
Let me see if this Bible has anything to say about that. With the Israel and Ishmaelites, that makes no sense. Chapter 8:24. Nope. Let's look it up. I'm just going to look up Israelites and Ishmaelites. I spelled that wrong. Who were the Ishmaelites? I mean, we know who they were. Simply put, the Ishmaelites are the descendants of Ishmael, the son of Abram, by his wife's handmaiden Hagar. From small beginnings, the Ishmaelites became a numerous and mighty people. Let me see if it mentions Israel. Later in Israel's history, the Ishmaelites were also called Midianites, although not all Midianites were descendants of Ishmael, right? Because we were talking about this with when Joseph was sold into slavery, that the Midianites and Ishmaelites are not the same, right? The Midianites are the descendants of Midian. But maybe, I guess, the Ishmaelites and the Midianites had... The reason why some people think you use the names interchangeably is because they traded together, probably, and they probably worked together, interacted on the same trade routes, or who knows, maybe the Midianites and the Ishmaelites, they intermarried, maybe, and the lines got mixed up. And they engaged in buying and the selling of slaves, right? So that's where we found out with Joshua. But it doesn't make sense why they're referred to as Israelites, right? Because Israel is Jacob. And Isaac's kids are Jacob and Esau. And Isaac's dad is Abraham. And Abraham had Ishmael. So they're two different lines, so it doesn't make any sense why an Ishmaelite is a descendant of an Israelite. That's impossible. So maybe the term Israel now has expanded to beyond the actual genealogy. It could be. I'm trying to see here if there's any other contextual information. Not really. That's interesting why they said that.
We will gladly give them.
And they spread out a garment, and each man threw in.
We will gladly.
Then the men of Israel said to Gideon. So maybe it could also be that the area, the promised land, is now known as Israel. And so people that reside in it are of Israel. Could be.
The earrings from his plunder.
For they had golden earrings, because they were Ishmaelites. So they answered,
We will gladly give them.
So we're jumping, like...
And each man threw into it
it's a decent jump
from his plunder.
Well, decent jumps going on, right? Because we're going through multiple judges, right? And the children of Israel are falling into paganism, getting delivered, falling into paganism, getting delivered. Yeah, so we are jumping time quite a bit.
The weight of the gold earrings that he requested was 1,700 shekels of gold, beside the crescent ornaments, pendants, and purple robes which were on the kings of Midian, and besides the chains that
Gideon
were
is
around
honestly
their
giving me
camels'
Conan the
necks.
Barbarian vibes. I feel like a cool story could be written about Gideon.
Made it into an ephod and set it up in his city, Ophrah. And all Israel played the harlot with it there. It became a snare to Gideon and to his house. Thus Midian was subdued before the children of Israel, so that they lifted their heads no more.
What does that mean? Let me read what this Bible's got to say. Judges. The original ephod was an ornate ceremonial garment worn by the high priest. We talked about that. Some scholars believe that the ephod made by Gideon resembled an idol, but there is no clear indication here that this was the case. By placing the ephod in his own city, Gideon might have been playing at being judge. Perhaps, tellingly, nowhere are we told that he judged Israel, whereas we read this of several of the other judges. After Gideon, another man also made an ephod with equally dismal results. It became a snare, recalls the narrator's introductory comment. Okay. So, and all of Israel played the harlot with it there. What does that mean? And it became a snare to Gideon and to his house. So the ephod ended up being something not that great. Thus Midian was subdued before the children of Israel, so that they lifted their heads no more. And the country was quiet for 40 years in the days of Gideon. Okay, so they made a clear distinction here between Midian and the children of Israel. So I'm curious why they did with that thing with the Ishmaelites. But anyways, let me look this up. And all Israel played the harlot with it there. What does that mean? Let's see if this has context. Gideon's ephod. The weight of the gold earrings he had requested was 1,700 shekels. Okay. From all this, Gideon made an ephod, which he placed in Ophrah, his hometown. But soon all Israel prostituted themselves by worshipping it there. So that's why some people think it was an idol. Okay, and it became a snare to Gideon and his household. Okay. So that makes sense to me. And they played the harlot with it there, right? They gave themselves to this ephod. They're so stuck in that idol worshipping mentality that they can't get rid of it. That's crazy.
And the country was quiet for 40 years in the days of Gideon.
But how is it quiet if they're busy doing this? Yeah, the Midianites are scared of you because you just destroyed them. But what about the people? What about the children of Israel? They're still in that idolatry, paganism mindset. If they're praying and worshiping this ephod, they're giving themselves to this ephod, this object that you made. And that's why it says it became a snare to Gideon and his house.
Then Jerubbaal, the son of Joash, went and dwelt in his own house. Gideon had 70 sons, who were his own offspring.
Gideon had 70 sons?
For he had many wives. And his concubine, who was in Shechem, also bore him a son, whose name he called Abimelech. Now Gideon...
All right, so we know that Gideon is not fully on the right track, right? Because he's committing adultery. The children of Israel are giving themselves up to this ephod that he made, right? And it didn't say that Gideon did anything again. It just says that the country was quiet for 40 years in relation to the dispute between the Midianites and the Israelites. So it didn't say like he did anything with the children of Israel, like guided them to the right path. So he still has pagan roots. So he hasn't fully come over yet, it seems like.
Gideon, the son of Joash, died at a...
Might believe in God, but he still doesn't have that foundation in God where Moses and the children of Israel and Joshua and all of them did.
Son of Joash.
Well, Moses didn't, but he developed a very strong faith.
Now Gideon, the son of Joash, died at a good old age and was buried in the tomb of Joash his father in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. So it was, as soon as Gideon was dead, that the children of Israel again played the harlot with the Baals.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And made Baal
It makes perfect sense because Gideon didn't correct the problem at the root, right? He didn't go to the behavior of the children of Israel and try and alter that, try and get them on the right track. He just subdued the territorial issues with the Midianites and the Israelites. They didn't want to be ruled or lorded over by the Midianites. That's the issue he fixed. He didn't fix anything spiritual.
Their God. Thus the children of Israel did not remember the Lord their God, who had delivered them from the hands of all their enemies on every side. Nor did they show kindness to the house of Jerubbaal, Gideon, in accordance with the good he had done for Israel.
Dang, that's actually a sad story. That's a sad ending right there. Man, we always talk about the Gideon and his fleece, right? And how the victory with the 300 men, and end the story there. We normally don't talk about the story all the way through. The roots of the Gideon, the beginning of the story starts in paganism and idolatry, and it ends in paganism and idolatry. Starts with the loss, ends with the loss. Are we going to get another judge next? Chapter 9, the Abimelech's conspiracy. What is that about? We're talking about some conspiracies going on? All right, we're going to jump into that tomorrow. So that'll be interesting. Well, hope you guys enjoyed Judges 6 to 8. I feel like we got some really cool insight. I found it quite interesting. So check back tomorrow, Judges chapter 9. And I will see you guys then. All right? Take care. Goodbye.